We can get right to it.
Perfect. Don't say that about me, guys. Come on. We just want the love. That's all I want to hear. Okay, great. So I think the first athlete we're going to talk about is Mr. Eric Gay.
Yeah, Eric Gay, he proved this year that age is just flat out a number, okay? And I understand that people watching this may say, Rob, he's 35 years old. Look, I'm older than 35 years old, so I'm not saying it's...
No, just kidding.
Remember those not nice things we wanted you to say about her? When you're 35, though, and when you've gone through the injuries he's gone through with his knee, the fact that he became the oldest skier to win a World Alpine title, gold at the Super G, pair of surgeries, he wiped out the entire 2014-15 season and came back to do what he did this year. How this is not on this list, it'd be impossible for us not to put this on this list. Overcoming what he overcame, what he's done, like I said, and helping out his teammates as well. There were times where he was calling up to his teammates saying, be careful on this turn, do this, do it. A team player, 35 years old, oldest ever win an Alpine race. I mean, what a season for Eric Gay.
Manny Osborne Parody can attest to that because it was at the World Championships where Eric Gay called up to the top of the hill. Manny answered, they had a little exchange, and Manny ended up winning bronze in the same race that Eric won gold.
Yeah, and you don't see that very often, do you? Two of them on the podium. Yeah,
especially
it is nice.
in a sport that's you'd think skiing, downhill alpine skiing, is a singular sport, but they always find ways to make it a team affair.
But not every country does. I find that's a very Canadian thing, and I've heard other countries don't necessarily have the same teamwork, and I don't want to start pointing fingers at which countries, but you hear about the Canadians all the time, even though it's an individual sport, as you mentioned. For him to call up there and say, this is what you got to look out for, and suddenly Parody's on the podium with him with a bronze. I mean, not to be too gung-ho about this, but that's teamwork. That's what you got to do to win medals for your country.
That is amazing. And he's 35 years old, so that makes Gay the oldest skier to win a World Alpine title. Yeah. Did you say that?
I did say that.
You did say that.
Yeah,
I thought it was such a good point that
you thought
I had to say it again.
The line's so nice, you said it twice.
Oh, good. Yes. Yes, we're rhyming too. This is going so well. All right, so if anybody out there watching thinks that Eric Gay's moment is one of the biggest of the winter, okay? Because we're going to move on to the next one. And before we do, I just want to take a second to answer some of you guys commenting because there's so many comments already. I love it. Hi, Kasem. I hope we're saying that right. Thanks for saying hi. Janet Fudge, so many fantastic memories from this past winter. How can you choose just one? Tessa and Scott's comeback season is such perfection.
Hold on. We don't have to choose anything. You're choosing just one. We're leaving this to you so no one can get mad at me and Jacqueline.
I don't want to ruin anything, but Tessa and Scott might be coming up. I don't know.
Yeah.
Lots more comments, but let's move on to the next one. Mark Arentz. He's a para-biathlete, actually. And he had an unbelievable season, 26 years old from PEI. And he had an amazing showing at the World Para-Nordic Skiing Championships. He had 6 races in 9 days, first of all. Yeah. I mean, that's like an Olympic-sized
We don't
event.
work 6 days and 9 days ever, and we're not doing that.
That, exactly. And he won 5 medals, 2 of which were gold, which is fantastic. That's such an unbelievable show. I mean, talk about consistency.
Yeah, and you know what else really jumped out to me was he did really well at the final test event, which is, of course, in Pyeongchang. And we don't ordinarily see this, Jacqueline. We don't ordinarily see the venues ready to go, and we've seen so many test events this year. And for me, those are the ones that really tell a lot, regardless of the sport. If you can succeed at the venue in which you're going to be competing at the Olympics, that's so much more to me. That's okay. You've got to go and you've got the track, you know what you have to do. You've succeeded there before. I know it's not the Olympics or the Paralympics, but you're succeeding there. Always a good sign.
And I mean, always inspirational at Paralympians. Arens actually hurt his arm in a farming accident when he was a kid, but obviously did not let that stop him from doing absolutely anything. He's a 2-time Paralympic medalist. He's won 2 silvers, which is Canada's best ever result in para-biathlon at the Games. So it's a nice little preview, hopefully, for Pyeongchang. If you think that's our story of the year. Yes. Moving on to our next moment. Oh, this was a good one. I really liked this one myself. Gabrielle Delman and Kaylin Osmond.
Yes.
Both hitting the podium at the World Figure Skating Championships.
First time ever that we've had 2 women on the podium at the World Championships.
Unbelievable. They made history. Excuse me. I'm just so impressed. But yeah, they had unbelievable performances, and I mean, even just watching them now, they were so poised, and this is the top of moments for them this season, right? And they really came through, and they did really well in terms of their own personal bests. Osmond, who's only 21 years old, set a Canadian record with a combined score of 218.13, and Daleman wasn't far behind. She was at 213.52 in her overall score. So they both landed 7 triples in their routines. I mean...
Yeah, and we talked about Eric Gay overcoming injuries, and you look at what Osmond did. I mean,
unbelievable.
Didn't qualify for the Worlds last year because she snapped her fibula in 2 places. I think that's a pretty good excuse for not competing in the World Championship. Comes back, finds herself on the podium, and then when you talk about Gabby Daleman, did a great interview with Andy Petrillo on Road to the Olympic Games and talked about being bullied. And she kind of started the interview, and I thought it was really a good kind of way to do it, where she said, most people look at athletes, we're strong, you know, we're competing at the highest level, and they don't think that we've gone through some of the things that young athletes go through. And she was bullied when she was younger and had to overcome that. People said she would never be a figure skater. Well, she proved a lot of those people wrong. So both of them overcoming a lot to get to this point. And like I said, when we go back to teamwork, they seemed so happy for each other.
Oh, that was the best. Watch, because when we need to wrap this up, you guys are definitely getting more than a minute to vote on this time.
It's Facebook Live. Cut us off. Let's see you cut us off.
One more point is that Gabby was actually right before Caitlin. So they said it had kind of a nationals feel. They're very used to competing right beside or right after or before one another.
Yeah.
And so that kind of felt familiar to them because it was in Finland this year. But just like seeing kind of Gabby realize she was delegated to third, but at the same time Caitlin was getting the silver, it was really great.
Yeah.
And broke a lull in women's singles. You know, I mean,
Joni Rochette, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And Joni Rochette won that silver in 2009. That was the last time. So fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, next up on our list, after you're done clicking on that. Oh, all right. Put my sleeves up for this one, even though I'm wearing short sleeves. Gary Bettman announcing that the National Hockey League will not be participating in the Olympics in Pyeongchang. Now, this has been something that's been debated. Call it water cooler talk, call it whatever you want, but people have been on one side or the other, Jacqueline. Either people are saying they're absolutely going or there's no chance they're going. And when this happened, I had actually put my phone on my kitchen counter and left for about 15 minutes. I came back. There were about 3 messages from her and messages from everyone saying, did you hear the news? And the reason I think it's so big is because, 1, there's about 700 angles. 2, I'm not quite sure this is a final decision. This very much could be some sort of negotiation ploy. And 3, we're going to talk about this for 8 years. I mean, because of the release from the NHL where they said that the IOC said, if you're not going to Pyeongchang, guess what? You're not going to China in 8 years.
Exactly.
This is something that's going to be discussed, debated, argued over for a long, long time. Unfortunately, it's kind of a negative story. I know that most of our other stories are really positive. Ask any hockey fan. I guarantee you they want to see this again at the Olympics. Maybe they will, but man, this was huge.
You know, I've also, on the other side of the coin, I've also heard hockey fans say, you know, great, I don't want the NHL season to be interrupted.
What kind of hockey fans are you talking to? Come on.
My brother. Sorry, Mitch. Got to call you out on that one. But, I mean, yeah, I guess it depends. It depends, I mean, how much you like seeing Canada. But it's just, it seems like such a tradition at every Winter Olympics that Canada is going to do so well, and it's always that one event that you're always tuning in for, whether you're a hockey fan or not. So
it's one of those weird topics that I think I kind of felt like you were back in high school in debate class. If you gave me either side of this argument, I could give you an argument for either side. I understood the league's stance. I understood the NHL players and their responses that came afterwards, and I understood the International Olympic Committee as well. But remember, this is top stories, guys. So it doesn't necessarily mean that they're positive. If you think this was the story that you, really, it stood out for you for this winter season, click on the likes. And trust me, when we don't talk, I know a lot about stats on our website or anything else, but cbcsports.ca, this thing just blew up and stayed blowing up for days. Yeah. And I have a feeling it's going to continue to blow up, like I said, for the next 8 years.
Definitely. And just for anyone tuning in right now, if you don't know what we're doing, Rob and I, and my name is Jacqueline, nice to meet you, we are going over the top 10 Canadian winter sports stories of this past season. And what we're doing is we're whittling it down to the very top moment. We're going through the top 10 right now, so if you've just joined us, the way you vote for your moment is that while we're talking about it, press like. Okay? Send in as many likes as you want. Our producer, Gabrielle, is tallying those votes, and then we're going to slowly whittle it down. It's a fun lunchtime today.
I like it. I like it.
All right, so moving on to the next moment. This was a big one.
Yeah, it was a huge one.
The next story, rather. Mark McMorris.
Yeah.
I mean, is the story that he had a devastating injury just a couple weeks ago that could have derailed his entire Olympic journey, really?
I have to correct you. Could have derailed his life. I mean, it was a crazy crash. We'll get more into it, but I know when I heard about this, the last thing I was thinking about was, is he going to compete in the Olympics? Is he going to be okay? You know, humanity. There you go.
Humanity. But you are right. So there's that story. And then there's the other part of the story where he had such an unbelievable season. He won 2 Crystal Globes, 1 for Big Air, 1 for overall freestyle champion, 3 X Games medals, 5 World Cup podiums, amongst other golds that he's won at other events throughout the season and contests. And I mean, right after his accident, literally days after his accident, he was named to the Pyeongchang 2018 team. So, I mean, let's just touch on the accident for just a little bit. Just a couple weeks ago, Mark was in the backcountry doing what snowboarders do, snowboarding with his friends. He was there with his brother, Craig McMorris, and he was doing a jump. He was going off a jump he had done multiple times already that day. Veered a little too far to one side and crashed pretty horrifically. Yeah, I mean, if we want to take a look.
I was going to say, you had a list. Let me tell you my list. Broken jaw, fractured left arm, ruptured spleen, pelvic fracture, rib fractures, and collapsed left lung. Now you understand what I meant when I said, who cares about the Olympics? Is he going to be okay? But what really blew me away about this story, and I can finally smile about it, is some of the pictures that they started posting in the days afterward. Trust me, if I had one of these things, I'm done. You're never seeing me compete again.
I complain about getting over a cold.
Yeah. And, you know, his brother
a long time.
said this, quote, "The progression he's made in the last 13 days alone was astronomical. I don't see any reason why he won't be snowboarding in Australia in August." In August, people.
This is the same gentleman, athlete, who won a bronze medal in Sochi 2014 with a broken rib.
Yeah.
Just saying. So we know that he can come back. And the last thing we'll say about this that we may be able to touch on later, should this make it through to the next round, I mean, the timing in his performance this season is kind of amazing, because if he had not pre-qualified for the games, how would he have qualified this year? Because he's probably going to spend most of it getting better. So that was a crazy story.
It really was.
That was a roller coaster story. I think we're still all kind of letting that one sink in.
All right, if you like that one, like. And if you like this one, maybe pull off an air guitar. Because Alex Harvey popularized the air guitar again. Not since like Bill and Ted's Bogus Adventure, or maybe even Wayne's World, has the air guitar been so popular. And it's been something he's been doing for a while.
It takes some confidence to pull off the air guitar.
It does.
I'll tell you that, especially in 2017.
Yeah, and you look at what he did on home soil, which was, I thought, the real big one in the province of Quebec. Wins a gold in the sprint. Then he goes 4th in the 15K mass start, 3rd in the World Cup standings. He was the 50K world champion, and every time he did that, he'd pull off the air guitar, and that kind of really put him on the the front pages of CBCSports.ca. And I think the reason is, Jacqueline, you look at the countries that traditionally dominate cross-country skiing: Norway, Sweden, Finland. Canada is not, usually where he is right now as far as this sport goes. So for him to dominate a sport in which other countries usually are sitting on top of the standings makes this huge. And I mean, I give him all the credit in the world, because I always say, and this is a sport I've never personally tried, it looks more like a workout. It looks as though it's almost like torture on your legs. But for him to do this and to look so happy doing it definitely puts it on our top 10 list.
Yeah, I mean, at the World Cup finals, he finished the 1.5 kilometer race in 2 minutes, 44.91 seconds. Come on.
I'm done. There's no way I'd be able to do anything. Just looking at it tires me out.
And there were a couple names commenting on our Facebook Live who predicted Alex being on this list. Carol Nelson, well done. So yeah, and we've got a couple more predictions here, so let's see if they come through.
Like.
Next moment.
Next. All right.
Told you guys Tessa and Scott would be here.
This is how I'm going to start this off, because I talked earlier about our stats from CBCSports.ca, and that's something that every website tracks. I am a firm believer we can put Tessa and Scott watch paint dry on our website,
and it
would be the top post. I mean, I guarantee you people are clicking like crazy right now. And it's not because they're so likable, even though they are. It's the fact that they took 2 years off. They come back. They don't not only win and succeed, they win every single, imagine winning every single competition that you compete in, and you do it with record scores. I mean, it wasn't just succeeding, it wasn't just winning. I mean, you look at the World Championship, they actually stumbled in the free dance, but they had such a lead, a 5.5 point lead, that they still ended up with the gold medal. I mean, just incredible.
You know what? It had to happen eventually. We needed to know that Scott was not a robot. And you know what? Maybe he is a robot and did it just to trick us. But, I mean, just almost perfection all the time. I actually remember watching the World Championships, and in the kiss and cry area after their short program, their coach actually said they increased their scores at every competition each time. Yeah. So, I mean, that's when you set out for a season, what more can you ask for?
Well,
to improve each and every time.
You're right. And that little stumble in the free dance at the Worlds, you're right. That was almost breaking. That could have been a moment in itself.
Yes.
And when we were discussing our top 10 moments, you brought that up. You said, well, just the stumble alone. And because that was news. That was, you're right. He's from this planet. He actually does make mistakes. But again, I think you add the fact that they're just so likable. You know, we've had them all over, you know, all our mediums, all our websites, and they're just so, you feel like you want to just hang out with them and go to dinner with them. I think that helps a lot too. But, you know, 6 straight gold medals also puts them on this list for sure.
Definitely. And there's so much more to say about them. So if you want to continue to talk about Tessa and Scott, click more likes, because we've definitely gone over a minute on that one too. Next
it's Facebook
moment.
Live. We'll go as long as we want.
It's Facebook Live. All right.
Wow. Curling. And this is interesting because we ended up mashing 2 stories into one. And I don't want people to think we're trying to disrespect either the men or the women. But there's a reason we put the men and the women's curling team into one. It's because they were both perfect at the World Championships. Okay, Rachel Homan goes to Beijing. High hopes. Everyone thought, you know, you are the favorite. Perfect in the round robin. Wins the 1-2 page playoff matchup, goes to the final, wins. Incredible. I thought that was, wow, for you to be perfect. And then Brad Gushue, after his, you know, on home ice, winning the Brier to earn his spot here, he goes to Edmonton and does the same thing. They were a combined 26-0 at a World Championship. 26-0. This isn't some small tournament out of, you know, in a small town. This is the world champion, the best in the world, and then Gushue ends up beating a 2-time world champion in Nicholas Edin. This is pretty incredible. We had them separate, you know, when we were planning this, but I thought, man, you've got 2 teams that were perfect. Let's mash them. It's the same sport. Let's mash them into one. This was, and you know, we had put on Twitter that we were going to be talking about this, and someone thought we weren't going to talk about Rachel Homan. You got to be kidding me, folks. I mean, perfect on both accounts. It was incredible.
Yeah, it was very incredible. And I mean, talking about Brad Gushue's injury, for him to come back like that, he didn't even know if he'd be able to throw a rock again. Psych. There he is.
And you don't need to be, like round robin, you don't need to be perfect to get into the playoff round, but
if it works,
why not? Why not?
Keep
Pretty
the ball
incredible.
rolling, right? Keep the ball rolling. Yep, Valerie, that's our Ottawa girl. Thanks for commenting, Valerie. And we've also got, there's so many comments. I love it. Sorry, I'm getting lost in them because I love that you guys are predicting so many people on this list. Tracy knew that Tessa Virtue Scott Moyer was going to be on there, and so did Allison. I mean, keep commenting, keep liking, guys. We're going to be checking, okay? Next moment. Mikhail, Mr. Kingsbury, fantastic. He won his 6th consecutive Crystal Globe this season.
Oh, he won 7 races in a row. That tends to happen, right?
Oh, my goodness. I mean, this is the thing about Mick. It's like the story with him is almost the same each season. All that changes is the number of his accolades just continues to increase. His consistency is unlike anything, I mean, arguably, any Canadian athlete has ever experienced in any sport. And I know there's going to be tons of people, you know, talking about, you know, Connor McDavid or, you know, anyone in any sport. But, I mean, I can't stress enough the amount of wins Mikhail has been able to string together. And for him to be the world champion and the leader in the entire field for the 6th year in a row. He's 24 years old. He's 24. I mean, it's like, I don't even know how to
It's incredible because,
that's my job.
Yeah, it's incredible because, he's at times been asked how he stays motivated. Yeah. Because in a lot of these World Cup events, it's a whole bunch of skiers going for second.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, this does have a little bit of a negative twist to it when you look at his performance in the World Championship. I mean, to many people, a bronze medal is a phenomenal, achievement. I guarantee you that's not what Mikkel Kingsbury was thinking after that, and he didn't even come close to the podium in the dual moguls. But you look at his season again this year, like forget the 6 in a row. There was a point. Every week I did my Road to the Olympic Games recap where we would recap everything, and for 7 straight weeks, I didn't change the part of my script that says Mikkel Kingsbury wins gold. I mean, it was just a given that was going to be in my script. And for that and the excitement on his face, I think he had to be on here.
He hit his 39th career win this season, which broke the record for the most overall victories in freestyle skiing on the FIS World Cup circuit. I mean, 24 years old, like I said, continues to stay dominant. He redefines the limits of his sport. His consistency is out of this world. I mean, I'm just saying, if I was sitting at my computer, I might be tempted.
You'd be clicking like here?
I might be hitting that like button a lot of times for this one, just because of the dominance. And it's so exciting, especially going into an Olympic year. Because he went
a couple of ice dancers dominated, too, I don't know.
Moguls. I watched it live a couple of times this season, and being there live gave me a whole new level of appreciation. Not that, figure skating doesn't either. I guess, you never know what sticks with you. But that's what's so great about winter sports. There's so many. And there's always something for everyone.
There's never been a sport in my life that I didn't have a new appreciation for when I saw it live. Every single sport that and I know it's just funny seeing as we work at CBC, and I feel like I'm telling people not to watch it on TV. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is when you see something live, it just brings it to a whole other level. And I know you covered a lot. You've been on the mountain all year long, and I know our next moment you were there for. I can't wait to talk about that one. But whole new appreciation for the sport.
Definitely. Speaking of our next moment, Mr. Maxence Perreault, our snowboarder from Canada, he landed a quad underflip at X Games Aspen. Now, this is a big deal for a lot of reasons, the first of which being it really changes the level of expectation in big air contests, which is a big deal considering big air snowboarding is making its debut in Pyeongchang 2018. And the next reason it's really important, which leads into the first, is that there's a big debate happening in the snowboarding world, and we've touched on it many times this season, whether it be in our features or in our articles, about, is snowboarding losing what makes it great? Are people pushing the technical too much as opposed to the style? And to flip in the air 4 times, that is, it almost defies logic. If you could hear the announcers at this event, I know I was here, I saw that, and when it happened and someone said, everyone, that was a quad underflip, the first quad underflip ever done in competition, everyone just kind of looked at one another and was like, what just happened? The announcers were losing their minds. It just means so much for their sport. And X Games is always a contest where the sport is pushed and the progression continues to build. So Max, he went on to win the big air title. He defended it. He won at the last X Games Aspen as well. And the snowboarding at Pyeongchang 2018 is going to be unbelievable.
And big air is, like you said, making its debut. And I think a lot of people don't necessarily know the finer points of the tricks they're doing, and we're doing our best to try to educate you because a lot of people have said to me, Rob, it just looks like they jump in the air, they do a bunch of twists and turns. But once you start understanding how difficult something is, big air is such a cool sport to watch because, you look at some of the other sports when you're doing certain things, it all comes down to one move, which I think is so cool. You're on a huge ramp and you do one move, and to spin around 4 times like that. And you're right, the surprise that we heard from people online at the event, the gasps, and it's interesting because it's a sport too that I'm sure he's practiced that a million times, and I'm sure he's landed it a million times.
Before he has, earlier this season.
But to do it when the judges are there watching is a whole new level.
You said it, Rob. Yeah, It was big. It was really big. I don't know how else to say other than that. So, I mean, if you think that was a big moment, if you're a snowboarding fan, click away, because that's, it's one of our moments that really does change the trajectory of a sport. A lot of them were fantastic stories, making history.
Yeah.
This one makes history, but it will change the way people compete this year, which is why it was one of the biggest moments that made our list.
One of the oldest sports cliches is he raised the bar.
He did.
The bar is now here. It was here, it's now here. And you talk about now what you have to do to compete. If there's the threat of someone pulling off a quad underflip, well, you better have a quad underflip or something better in your bag of tricks. Otherwise, you're not going to be competing at that event.
Which, you know what? Not everyone does.
Yeah.
And you're risking a lot. You are risking a lot. I mean, big air, any type of snowboarding, really, with the snow and the conditions and your weight dispersion and your air, or knowing where you are in the air, there's just so many easy little places for things to go wrong. And I mean, look at Mark McMorris. We talked about his injury earlier this year. Last season, he broke his femur on a routine jump that he had done it before.
He's broken everything, that guy. And he's talking about being back on the mountain in August. It blows my mind.
Max, well done. Thank you for making our list again, or for giving us something to put on our list.
So click away. We're tallying up the results now. And while we do that, there were some things, just to kind of give you guys a peek behind the curtain, that we debated whether they should have been on the list, because, to be quite frank, they weren't stories that were really celebrated, and some of them were unfortunate if you're a fan of Canadian sports.
Yeah.
One of them that kind of jumped out to me, Team Canada, the hockey team, women's hockey team, losing at the World Championships. I mean, you look at the world for years. I mean, there's been 18 World Championships, 18 Canada versus U.S. finals. You talk about a rivalry that's been around forever, since this sport really gained popularity. But it's really slid towards the Americans, Jacqueline. And now the Americans have won 4 in a row. They've won 7 of the last 8. The devastation on the face of the Canadians, because it was in overtime. There's nothing worse in sports than losing in overtime. They call it sudden death for a reason. That was pretty heartbreaking. And I know it's the Olympic year, and many people say, well, just wait till the Olympics. But it's starting to really lean towards the Americans in that they've been dominating for a while, and Team Canada definitely has to step up.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Another moment that surprised me, and I think it might have surprised a lot of people at home too, Kaylee Humphries not taking the top title this year at the World Cup final.
Well, I think I think the reason that was so surprising is because she, for lack of a better term, held her fate in her own hands.
Yes.
I mean, she was in the lead going into her final run, did not have a good final run, ended up finishing 5th, and that 5th dropped her into 2nd. And I think that's one of those things that probably stings a little more. If you do everything you can, but somebody's just that much faster, that's one thing. When you have a bad last run of the season to lose the overall title, that's got to sting that much more.
Yeah, especially at the World Championships.
Yeah.
I mean, she's been there a million times. But the interesting thing about Humphries is that she was going through a lot of different break women this season. We saw much earlier this winter, she had names like Jen Kish, who was a rugby player. She had names like Felicia George, who is on the Canadian track team, all kind of pushing for her, seeing if they could, bring her to the same success that she had with Heather Moyes, obviously. But what ended up happening was that Melissa Loeffels was the one who she brought with her to World Championships, and they only lost by 0.03 of a second over 4 runs. So, I mean, Humphries did point to the fact that their start might have been what burned them.
Yeah.
Well, no, she didn't say might have been. She said our starts were what burned us, which couldn't have been easy for Melissa to take. But at the same time, they're building.
Yeah.
And you know when the time to build is? Now. Not next year. So they're on a good trajectory, I think.
Yeah. Do we have our totals? We have our totals for our top 5. So we've whittled 10 down to 5.
10 down to 5.
All right. Let's see our totals. Well, there we go. Curling.
No shocker
You go
here.
Perfect. Of course you've got to be in the top 5.
2 golden Canadian teams.
2 golden perfect Canadian teams. So that's in our top 5. What else do we got? Or more curling?
Another Canadian duo.
Yes, on the
Caitlin
podium.
and Gabby.
All right, let's see what else. And then we'll discuss this to see what's going to be whittled down.
Oh, Bettman vetoing. Oh,
I get it.
I'm a little surprised. I don't know why, but I'm not going to lie.
You know why? It's such a discussion point, Jacqueline. It's such a discussion point that some people, I never talked to anyone who said, I'm indifferent. I either hear there's no reason for them to go. I don't want to get up in the middle of the night to watch hockey games in Pyeongchang. Why are they going to shut down their league? Why are they going to give up all this money just to go there and make the IOC money? And then there's other people that say, golden goal, the best players in the world, best on best. There's so many different arguments to this that I understand, even though I consider this a negative story. I think a lot of people would. I understand why it's in the top 5.
And we will talk about it more because we're going to go through each of these again, so you guys get another chance to vote. We'll give you that soon. But let's take a look at what else we'll be talking about. Mr. McMorris, well-deserved. I mean, also a bit of a negative story, but it had a huge positive part, too. So we'll talk about him and the rest of the snowboarding gang in Team Canada as well.
In a shocking turn of events.
I'm not a betting woman, but I would have bet that these two would make the top 5.
We should do what I said. We should put Tessa and Scott watch paint dry. Have a video of them watching paint dry for 5 minutes. And I guarantee you it'll be our top post of the day.
We should. I'm serious.
I'm telling you.
But it wouldn't take a lot of production either.
Okay.
Just a can of paint and a wall.
So we've got another round of betting. Another round of... You wanted to bet. That's why I got betting on my mind. Another round of voting to go. Same deal. We're going to go through all 5. We won't necessarily be over a minute on these ones. We'll go quick. And have your clicking finger ready there. All right. Why should they vote for this?
Why should you vote for this? And just a reminder, you vote by clicking the likes. You guys have a minute. It works the same as in the top 10. So start liking now if you think Holman Gushu having a perfect season, winning the gold of World Championships should be our top story of the winter season. Whew, that was a lot.
I think this should definitely be in contention because
for sure.
They were 26-0. Think of that number, folks.
Unbelievable.
26-0. They beat the best competition in the world, and most of our stories, other than maybe Tessa and Scott, most of our stories, as great as they are, technically they could have done better, right?
Right.
Technically. They could not have done better.
No.
They did everything they should do. So if you think this is the top story, click, click, click.
Yeah, and I mean, like we mentioned earlier, I mean, Rachel Holman, unbelievable. Brad Gushu had, the entire team had injuries all through the season. And I think one of the things that make them so remarkable and really special going into an Olympic year is their depth. Because when someone hurt their shoulder, I feel like it was Gallant who hurt his shoulder. Someone else was able to come in.
Yeah.
Nichols was ready to, take over a position when someone else came out. I mean, to have that depth and be able to play around with that and still have such an unbelievable season and be able to show up when it matters most, Brier, World Championships, amongst others, that's pretty unbelievable.
And not only the perfection I keep bringing up, I mean, for Rachel Holman, first woman ever to go perfect at the World Championships. And for Brad Gushu, since they went to a 12-team format, the first to go perfect. So you're not making Canadian history, you're making your sports history. So those are some of the reasons you should be clicking like if you think this is it right now. So what's our next one? Because, man, this top 5 is going to be tough.
This will be really tough because they're all huge moments and stories.
Yeah.
I mean, to achieve what they've achieved. So, I mean, again, we spoke about this earlier, but let's touch on the fact that Ms. Osmond had a horrific leg break just a couple years ago.
In practice, too.
She was going to skate. I know.
In practice.
I heard she was avoiding someone. Someone kind of cut her off a little bit, and she was veering away and just had, I can't even think about how excruciating it would be to break your leg in 2 places like that.
Well, I can't figure excruciating. And then what goes through your mind thinking, the sport I want to compete at, last I checked, needs 2 legs. Last I checked,
2 legs.
Well, think about it. Like, we've all had injuries, and you and I are not professional athletes. You and I are not competing at the highest level. Yes, okay.
I'm not even going to joke about it because it's just so lame.
So, I mean, to do that and to think, I need to come back, like, I don't know how they do it. When I get injured now in some way, shape, or form, I'm thinking, is this going to affect me in some way? I mean, they both, and this was the other thing that really jumped out to me. Not the point where they got their scores, but we saw it a second ago. When they're finished their program, they stop and they knew right away, we're there. We're on the podium, each of them. So great moment, and they were pretty happy for each other as well.
because of their stellar performance, it's the first time in 50 years that Canada is guaranteed 3 spots at the Olympic Games. And it's really interesting because it seems to be that there's like almost a new tide of women's single skating. I mean, Japan's Mao Asada just announced her retirement a couple days ago, and she was a 3-time world champion. You know, she's 26, so she's making her way, and she's dominant for so long. In come in these young Canadians who seem to be really picking up steam and, you know, looking to peak at the right times, and they're doing it. I mean, for Canada, these were the first medals in women's singles since Joni Rochette won silver in 2009. Before that, there hadn't been a medal in women's singles since 1998. So this is some really great momentum being built right now. And, I mean, timing couldn't be better.
If you think that is our top story of the winter season. But here's the other one we talked about. Like I said, just so many angles, so many opinions. Our computers blew up when this happened. Our phones blew up when this happened. For all we know, this is how deep this story goes. For all we know, when we're done this Facebook Live, we could say, thanks for watching, see you later. There could be 5 new updates on this story.
There could be.
There could very well. We could hear that, you know, and this, I'm not saying this is going to happen. This is just, you know, possibilities that now Gary Bettman's opened the door to possibly going. If, okay, they're going to pay for the insurance. They're going to pay for travel. They're going to do this. They're going to do that. But as of right now, they're not going. And the other angle that everyone seems to kind of, not everyone's forgetting. I mean, Tim Warnsby wrote a great piece on CBCSports.ca. I mean, who's going to go now? Are we talking a Spangler Cup type team of former NHLers? Are we talking making it the World Juniors sort of tournament where nobody who's played professional hockey or very little professional hockey, who's going to go now? People love the best on best. You can't deny that. And I think when the NHL announced the World Cup of Hockey, which I'm never going to say is as exciting as the Olympics, but I think that might have been their way of saying, you see? We've got an international tournament. We don't need to go to Pyeongchang. However, in 8 years, we're talking China. And that is a market they want to tap into so badly because last I checked, there's a couple of people in China. And if you can get them liking hockey, you're going to make a lot more money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you got to wonder if the Olympics weren't in Pyeongchang and they were somewhere a bit closer to home, whether Bettman would feel the way he does or whether the NHL would.
If the Olympics were in Calgary, are we talking about this right now? I'd love to know that too.
I mean, I don't think so, but
I mean, that had to be a factor.
It had to be. To get to Vancouver, like how perfect was that for everyone?
Yeah, or Salt Lake City. You know, it was. I think it has to be. You know, we're shutting down our league. You want to use our players without any risk, without any money, without any. Like I said, I understand all 3 angles to this story, and it's going to be a story that we're going to see for a while. But it's interesting. The day after this story broke. The reaction from the players.
I was just going to say.
Was you know, you had a lot. Even the NHLPA's response was very strongly worded. We want to go. We think this is short-sighted. So it kind of almost felt like during lockout times when they were throwing stones back and forth.
Alex Ovechkin plans to go, no?
Alex Ovechkin says he's going to go. Alex Ovechkin says they're not going to stop me. If you tell Alex Ovechkin your contract is null and void if you leave the team, what's going to happen? I mean, it's the same sort of thing with the insurance factor. I mean, a lot of players say they want to go, but if your insurance, if Sidney Crosby goes to the Olympics and he has a career-ending concussion, insurance is going to pay him, but insurance is not going to give the Pittsburgh Penguins another Sidney Crosby. So if you told a player, sure, you can go to the Olympics, but the second you get hurt, you're not getting paid, I wonder how many of these players are going to be saying the same thing.
Multi-layered issue,
yeah. Yeah, huge, and that's why it's on the list. I mean, we couldn't stop talking about it. We were in our CBC Sports newsroom, and people who usually get along were raising their voices because people are passionate about this.
Yeah, definitely. Moving on.
There you go.
Moving on. I like moving up. Mr. McMorris. So, I mean, the part we didn't really get to talk about when we spoke about Mr. McMorris the first time, and I'm not sure how many people really appreciate the fact that in Pyeongchang 2018, it is very, I'm not going to say, it's very possible that we could have a Canadian podium takeover in a snowboarding event. It's not out of the realm of possibilities at all. We've seen quite a few instances of Canadians taking over not only finals, but also the podium in a couple contests this year. And Mark McMorris is one of the key players in that. I think it would sooner be in slopestyle at the Olympics than it would be big air. But, I mean, it's the Olympics. Anything can happen. And it's just, to not have Mark McMorris there would be such a blow to the Canadian team. But, having said that, if there is a team that could continue to, if there is a team who could do fantastic without one of their stars, it's the Canadian men's snowboarding team, because they have so many strong players. Max Perot, who we talked about earlier in the last round, landed the quad for the first time or quad under flip for the first time in competition this season. He's scheduled to be there, and then there's some huge names like Seb Toutan, Tyler Nicholson, Darcy Sharp, Mikey Cicerelli. And there are only 4 spots available, 2 of which are already taken by Mark and Max. So it's just Mark's unbelievable season followed by such a catastrophic injuries is a huge part of an even bigger story.
It's a huge multi-layer. We talked about the hockey being multi-layered. You've talked a lot about Mark McMorris, the athlete. I'm going to read it again. Broken jaw, fractured left arm, ruptured spleen, collapsed lung. I mean, the day he was named to the Olympic team, the first thing I thought is, are you kidding me? Like, I just don't look at this. And his recovery's been incredible. The pictures we're seeing him up and about. You said it. I get a cold, I'm down for 2 weeks. And he's, up and I guess the instinct, or I guess that's what you need to be an athlete in a high performance sport, and really an extreme sport like this. You have to be able to look at that injury and say, what's next? Heal up, move on. He did, as you mentioned, with the broken rib 4 years ago. But I'm going to take the other angle, and I'm much more concerned about just him healing as a human, because he's proven in the past. You said your femur is the hardest bone in your body to break, and it takes a long time to heal. But man. And
Mark came back better and stronger after breaking his femur.
He did.
So, I mean, that's the thing. He's just shown so many times with the broken rib, with the broken femur, that he comes back and he can perform. So, I mean, I'm not worried.
I can tell. I
think he's going to come back and he's going to throw out something we've never seen before, or he's just going to be so consistent, which is what I personally think one of Mark's strongest points are. Contest after contest, whether he's doing slopestyle or big air, there's just something about his consistency and his calmness that just seems to pay off for him every time. And consistency, any athlete will say, has to be one of the most important parts of their game or their performance. I mean, it's one thing to be able to do things in practice, to do things a couple times here and there. It's another to put it down when it counts, and Mark McMorris does that time after time.
Okay, the favorites. Let's call a spade a spade. We know why you want to vote for them. You love them. They were dominant. If I took 2 years off of doing anything in my life, I am not going to be as good as I was before that. Not only were they as good, they were better. They came back with new coaches. They came back with what seemed like a whole just new, I don't want to say lease on life, just an attitude. It almost seemed as if they were determined to do what they wanted to do. But is it me, but do they always look like they're having a blast doing it?
I was just going to say that. Gabrielle Daleman got a chance to practice with Tessa and Scott, and she talked about it to CBC Sports, and she said that, they just seem to be having so much fun on the ice and at practice. And, I mean, whenever you see them in the kiss and cry area or, warming up behind the scenes before taking the ice, cool, calm, collected, smiles.
Well, laughing. I mean, you look at the Grand Prix final. They'd never won it before this year.
Right.
And in an interview with us that we have on our YouTube channel, they kind of joked about, we've never won it, almost like disappointing, ho-hum. Most athletes don't do that. Most athletes don't make light of the fact that they haven't won. Ask Alexander Ovechkin how happy he is that he hasn't won a Stanley Cup.
Or don't ask him.
Yeah, exactly. They made light of it, and what did they do? They go out and they win it.
And they won it.
Look, sports are all about your body and what you're doing because you have to go out and do it. But it's all about your mentality as well, and the way you can go into an event and how you can. And that's why people like sports psychologists nowadays are so important, because sure, You need to be able to pull the move off, but if you're not mentally right, and to me, these two seem mentally right now, and that's why they're dominating in the fashion they are, and that's why I think a lot of people right now are clicking away on Tessa and Scott.
For sure, clicking away. Let's take a look at some of our comments. Dirk thinks that Mark will be ready for the Olympics. He is such a tough guy. Dirk, I agree with you. And Sezin...
Hold on. I didn't doubt the guy's toughness. I'm just saying...
I don't think anyone does.
Yeah.
Sezin wanted to talk and mention that Virtue and Moyer have 20 years of partnership. That's a great point.
Yeah.
That's a great point. I mean, to progress with a partner and not let things get stale and, you know, to grow together and have your skills physically and mentally grow at the same time, too.
No.
That's a really great point, Sezin. So... here we go.
Dun, 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 the final two.
We are getting to the final two, everyone. And we have some time to kill, so we're going to talk about a bit more heartbreaking moments.
Hold on, before we do that. Who are your final two?
Ooh, oh, okay.
Who are you? Hang on, hold on. Not who you think the people are going to pick. What are your final two? I want to know what's going on in there.
You want to know what's going on in my head?
Yes,
though?
final two.
I will tell you. I got to go with Mark McMorris. Disappointed Mikhail didn't make it through, to be quite honest with you. But, okay, concentrate, Jacqueline. I'm going to say Mark McMorris and Tessa and Scott. What are you going to say?
I am going to, well, I think a lot of people who watch us with any regularity know I'm a puckhead, but I got to say the hockey story. I got to say the National Hockey League not going to the Olympics, ... for now, is one of them.
And number two?
Oh, man. I think it's got to be Tessa and Scott, too.
I think it's going to be Tessa and Scott.
But it's here's the other thing. When I look at what Tessa and Scott, Tessa and Scott were perfect, too. But when I look at what Rachel Homan
I was just going to say,
and Brad Gushue did, when I look at Brad Gushue winning, you know, people talked about the fact that, you know, he was on his home soil for the Brier, and that's great. That's a lot more pressure when you've got everyone in the building cheering for you. To do what he did, for both of them to go perfect, for both of them to do things that no one's ever done, that's right up there too. So to answer my own question, my top two are the Olympics, Tessa and Scott, and curling. Counting is fun.
I will let you cheat on
Counting
that one.
is fun.
I'll let that one slide. Also, something else I wanted to mention, if you're a huge fan of any of these moments, because almost all of the moments in our top 10, we have features on the CBC Sports YouTube page on almost all of them. We have Rachel Homan, Tessa and Scott, an amazing feature of them in Montreal. Mikhail, Mark and the snowboarding team. If
Jump
you
on the
want to
page.
check on any of them, because, you know, it's getting to be that time, guys. It's getting to be that time. Got to brush up on your Winter Olympians so that you can talk.
And you'll fall into our YouTube spiral on the YouTube page. Trust me on this one. You'll click on one. I've done it, and then 2 hours later, you've watched so many programs. You're gonna just not even know where the time went. But we're down to our final two. Let's see who was right. I cheated, but let's see who was right. And our top two, they made it. You see?
Oh man! You know what though? You can't argue the dominance in both of these stories in terms of Canadian sport.
Well
done, guys. I agree.
Didn't lose. How can that not be?
You can't argue with that logic.
Yeah, and I think that is the reason this trumps hockey.
Yes.
Is because I think a lot of people are sports fans and Canadian sports fans, and they'd much rather celebrate an accomplishment than, you know, a bad decision. And I think they'd much rather celebrate that. And you know what? That's why we put it on you. And that's why Jacqueline and I can never say we're wrong, because you made the decision.
And now this is where it gets interesting.
Okay.
Now everyone's sitting watching on their computers.
Last time you have to vote.
Or their mobile devices, or their iPads. Have to choose between these two moments. So will it be Gushue and Homan, world champions, or will it be the amazing, flawless return of Scott and Tessa?
Don't call it a comeback. I've been here for years. That's what they're saying, but this is pretty incredible too. So vote right now. We're going to talk for like a minute to get some votes in.
Well, Rob?
Yes?
Who do you think should win?
I'm going to go with curling.
Really?
I am going to go with curling.
Why?
like I said, I think when you do something that no one else has ever done in your sport at the highest stage, and then we do it on the men and the women's side. I mean, and it's, you talk about, Canada is on top of the curling world right now. Period. End of story. There's no debate because they're the defending champions in both. And they were perfect in both. No one, like I said, no one had ever gone perfect on the women's side since they went to a 12-team format. No one's ever gone perfect on the men's side. No disrespect. I mean, I think this is a very worthy. Really, I think we should go 1 and 1A.
I know,
but that's my vote.
So I hope you guys who are watching are voting as well. I think you get another minute to vote for each moment. So we'll talk a little bit more about Rachel and Brad, because they do deserve at least a minute.
Well, who's your number one? Are you picking?
Well, let's talk a little. I'm going with Tessa and Scott, but let's talk about Brad and Rachel a bit more so that you guys have the time to vote. Once we switch over, you can vote for Tessa and Scott. So if you're voting for Tessa and Scott, save your votes right now. If you think it should be Rachel and Brad, click those likes. I mean, you're right, and for it to be curling too. I mean, curling is one of Canada's sports. And
it is.
If you watch the footage from those games or matches, I mean, even when Gushu won the Brier, it was electric.
Yeah.
Everyone, and it's such a contrast too, because that rock is moving and it's going kind of slow, and you don't know if it's going to make it where it needs to go, but it did. And just to see their reactions to winning the Brier, seeing their reactions to winning the World Championships and having a perfect record. Nichols was on the phone to his wife who couldn't be there. I think they're expecting a baby and she couldn't be there to watch. And he was apparently on the phone to her, talking to her right after they won, just sobbing. I mean,
it's incredible.
It's a real human. There's such a human aspect to it that a lot of the time we don't get to talk about, because you just hear about these amazing accolades. But really and truly, I mean, it was such a team effort too. One of the first things Brad said after they won was pushing so much of the praise to his teammates, and to work like that flawlessly as a team.
Well, I mean, curling is one of those sports that is a team sport. Mm-hmm. Of course, there's the skip. Of course, he's the leader. Of course, he or she, is the leader and makes the decisions. But I mean, it is a team sport.
Yeah.
And you look at what both of those teams had to overcome.
Yes.
You look at, Brad Gushu, as you mentioned, injuries to this team. For them to compete at the highest stage, win, and do it in record perfect fashion, it's almost, I keep saying that, and then I think to myself, well, that's got to be it. But then I think, well, Tessa and Scott were perfect too. Tessa and Scott broke records too. Tessa and Scott won the World Championship too. I mean, like I said, it's 1 and 1A.
And similar for both parties, Homan and Gushu, they have a target on their back moving forward into this Olympic year, as do Tessa and Scott.
Yeah.
So, if you want to vote for Tessa and Scott, now is your time. So,
like.
I personally can't get over the fact that Tessa and Scott came back so flawlessly. And I'm not sure which part, do you think the mental part of their comeback was the most impressive?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Like I said, I don't know too many athletes who compete on the stage that they were competing on and look like they're having that much fun and dominating and breaking, like they were breaking their own records. And I'll bring it up again. I mean, when they had their short dance at the Worlds and had a 5.5-point lead, you don't really need to know what that means.
Right.
Just know that they skated a less than perfect free skate. Scott stumbled and they still won.
Oh my God.
They won narrowly, but they won.
Watching that stumble.
I know.
Everyone in the office who just had a collective.
But it's a cushion. They built such a cushion because of their world. Well, put it this way: the team they were competing against that pushed them in the free skate had a world record free skate and still couldn't catch them. So think about that. They had to go out and think, we could break a world record and we're still not going to catch the team that stumbled because they had such a lead.
Yeah.
So I think we're dealing with two stories here of utter dominance, and I think you and I are fans of dominance. You can tell we don't just want to see people win. We want to see them destroy the other teams.
And you know what? It has to be also their partnership as well. We need to give a shout out to them for that, because we were reading articles about Tess and Scott post stumble.
Dun, dun, dun.
And Scott was just saying, you know, how right after it happened, Tessa was there ready with a joke, lighten the mood a little bit. As they continued to skate, she gave him a couple reassuring arm squeezes. And he's like, that put me right back into it. And he was the first to credit Tessa with being so dominant and staying calm and being such a good rock for him throughout the rest of that dance. Because when you fall, you need to keep going. You need to act like it didn't happen, which that's the thing with figure skating for me. How do you continue so flawlessly after having such a jolt like that? But if anyone can do it, Scott Moir.
You're almost calculating your score in your head, thinking, oh, how many points did we lose there? What's going on?
But you have to act like you're not, and you need to concentrate because the last thing you want is for that to happen again.
I'm excited. I think I know. Now, remember, I said curling, you said Tessa and Scott. Okay, but that's our personal. Hang on. I believe Tessa and Scott are going to win.
Well, that's no fun.
Paint dry. Put them watching paint dry, and they're going to win. Am I right? Am I right?
Oh,
there we go. Come on. We just knew it was going to happen. No.
And, you know, for all the reasons we just spoke about,
yeah.
And we had been speaking about throughout the rest of this Facebook Live, you voted. This is the moment you chose as the biggest Canadian sports story this past winter season. And you know what? I agree with you guys.
You were right. I think 1 and 1A. How about we do it that way?
Let's see if we've got any Facebook any commenting reaction.
Hey, while you do that, I'm just going to ask Gabby, who was tallying this up. Was it by a long shot or was it close? It was close. It was close.
I was going to say a lot of comments on here saying curling, just because of the amazing records for both teams simultaneously. Yeah. But Dirk has a good point. He agreed that curling should have won, but that figure skating is more popular around the world.
That's
has
true.
Something to do with it?
But I mean, is that really part of the criteria? I mean,
no, but it is a good point, Dirk.
It's a good point, but I mean, when you look at certain sports are very popular around. Hockey's obviously number one here. A lot of places in the world have no idea. They no idea about the sport, so we never really took that into consideration. I don't think as far as worldwide, but I mean, how could you not? How could you not?
A lot of people happen. Lauren happy says Tessa and Scott are legend. Veronica's happy too. She said Tessa and Scott. I mean, that was a really great roundup, guys.
It was. Thanks for all the votes, yeah.
And again, remember, if you want to learn anything more about any of these moments and so many more, cbcsports.ca or go to CBC Sports YouTube page. We have features on Tessa and Scott, one of the biggest moments of the year, as well as a bunch of the rest of our athletes, and they're so fantastic. So it's time to get to know them because the Olympics are around the corner.
It's been fun, Jackie.
It has been fun. Pizzo, we should do this again sometime.
I have a feeling we will.
I think we will a lot. But thank you for watching, everyone, and we will see you next time. Enjoy the rest of your day. I was right.